Well, good day everybody. Welcome back to the channel, and we're not in my studio, we're in the kitchen dining room because we have some big machines and our friend Kevin Kittle. Welcome back, Kevin.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, well, we have some IBM Selectrics here, and we thought it would be fun today to talk about the original IBM Selectric, what is generically known as the 1, and it is specifically called the 721 because the 2 refers to the ribbon style, which in this case is a cloth ribbon cartridge. They also offered a reel-to-reel spool carbon film system. That would have been the 7.1 version. And then the carriage width is the last number. This is a 11-inch carriage, 8.5-inch printing line, so that's the 1 on the end of 721. So this is a 721 cloth ribbon cartridge, 11-inch platen, and generically known as the Selectric 1, even though they never actually marketed it as a 1. It was just Selectric.
Right.
And then, so this is from 1971, I think. It was
Pretty close to that, yeah. Serial number, yeah, pretty close.
What you have is a machine that's similar in size, but made over a decade later, right?
Right. So what this was made in 1983 only. Made for 1 year, and it is an IBM Personal Writer, or Personal Typewriter,
Personal Typewriter, yeah.
Personal Typewriter.
And I noticed it's a portable.
They marketed it as a portable.
It has a handle.
It has a handle.
A canvas kind of cloth pouch.
Yeah, this is a denim.
Oh, denim.
It's a denim type of cloth, so that's kind of important with what you'll see.
Yeah.
And so it is a personal typewriter, and it was made, again, as I said, in 1983. And it was the culmination of essentially the complete series of Selectric typewriters, meaning that it is a combination typewriter of a 1, a 2, and a 3.
Meaning the parts inside.
The parts inside.
So it sounds like IBM was nearing the end of the whole production run of the Selectric, and they were transitioning to the wheelwriter and other kinds of systems. We're guessing that they took a bunch of parts in the warehouse and came up with this design and marketed it as the Personal Writer.
Right, because the Selectric 1, as we call it, was actually manufactured in a variety of models all the way up to about 1979.
Okay, right.
And even though the Selectric 2 had come out about 1970.
Okay. So there's an overlap.
There's an overlap.
Yeah.
And then they started marketing in the late 70s the Selectric 3, so there was an overlap there.
So all 3 were actually, for a while, maybe a couple of years, were being built concurrently.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes. And then there was different variations of parts that were used in one, such as some Selectric 3s have the Selectric 2 style ribbon cartridge, and then they went to a different type of cartridge. And the Selectric 2s, you could get them, although they're probably relatively rare, with a fabric cloth ribbon type of cartridge, like your 721.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of overlap in parts. IBM was pretty smart about that. They didn't stop production of one and started the other. They just said, hey, if people will buy them, we'll keep making them.
Well, unzip that thing and let's take a look at it. Yeah.
Now, what is unique about this one is that and it has to go with the denim case, is that all IBM personal typewriters were an off-white, or not quite an ivory, but they were an off-white color.
Kind of drab office color.
Drab office color. And all of them were the same. They didn't make anything the same. But this one is not.
Oh, yes.
This is blue, and yes, I repainted it.
Fantastic.
And I repainted it because I wanted something that looked better than the off-white.
Oh, yes, yes.
And it's surprising that IBM didn't make a color like this.
Because they had the original Selectric came in these kind of colors.
And you can get them in lots of different colors, green and red and beige and, and gray and all colors. So this one here I painted with a rattle can, as they said, and this color from Krylon is called Deep Denim Blue.
Deep Denim Blue, so that's the denim bag?
That's the denim bag, and when you think about it, so this is now an IBM Deep Denim Blue typewriter, which goes with the computer.
Yes.
The chess
computer. Yes, the deep blue chess computer.
So I played upon that theme and all that. And I think it came out really well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just makes the typewriter look really good.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 2 Selectrics that are both compact, relatively compact in size as Selectrics go.
Right, and it is the most compact because they
Yes.
both use the 11-inch
11
wide
inch.
carriage, 8.5-inch writing line.
And the original version, the one, is maybe a little shorter. I don't know. It looks pretty close.
Pretty close. It's maybe a little bit shorter. Definitely less boxy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the features of the keyboards, keeping in mind that both of these machines have been modified somewhat.
That's
right?
correct, and
Yeah.
I can point out those modifications as we go along.
Okay.
So with the original Personal Selectric, they used the mechanicals essentially from the Selectric 1 with the case design from a Selectric 2 and some other mechanicals from a Selectric 2, such as the 88 character type ball. And then they used the Selectric 3 ribbon element or cartridge, which in this case is they nicknamed bicycle ribbon cartridge. And it was meant as a personal typewriter. It was marketed, one of the primary markets was American Express. They marketed it as something you could buy as a premium through the credit card company. But because of that, it was a less featured Selectric 2 correcting. It does have correcting, but it doesn't have a carriage or platen adjustment for a thickness of paper. It doesn't have a half-space line, so it's completely, that's all missing on this side here.
So whereas the one would have had that.
The one has that. It has the thickness adjustment for your number of sheets of paper going through. And it also is only single pitch, unlike a Selectric 2, which most of them were dual pitch.
Okay. And this is single pitch also.
And this is single pitch also, so they came with that. And then when it comes down to the keyboard, you have basically your standard keyboard layout that you would see in both typewriters, but this one I did modify, because I was able to, where they added the expedite backspace here by changing out in the return character. So I made a spot for that to go. And that's what we did also on the 721 here. We added that to make it, give it that functional capability, which is kind of nice. And then pretty much everything else is the same. You've got your margin release, your indexing button here, you've got your margin sets here, your tab setting. Everything's pretty much the same.
And when you changed when we added the expedite or express backspace, I mean, we had to change the shape of the return to be ready.
Right. And so with our service technician, Steve Marshall, he had parts, and he basically just used this button from, in my case, a Selectric 2, and he replaced that. In your case here, it is a little different shape of key, but he had the right parts to do that for this Selectric 1 model. Yeah. And that was actually a fairly common type of change that you could make to these machines as an option going through your service rep with IBM.
So the real difference, though, is this has, like, from a functional standpoint, this has the correction, the lift-off correction.
And that's the lift-off correction. Yeah. So let's open that up again. Right. And you can see we have the lift-off correction.
It's a carbon film cartridge, so it's going to be the carbon film imprint.
Right. And what they called this was, because it's orange, they called it actually high-yield correctable carbon film. Okay. You could actually buy, I've learned, and it would have been a pink spool in the middle, and that was your film cartridge, but that wasn't considered correctable. And then in the Selectric 2s, you could buy the one with the blue, which was the Tech 3.
Okay. And so these are a single-use only ribbon cartridge.
Correct. Right? Single use only.
Whereas on this 721, we have a cloth cartridge that auto-reverses itself back and forth with a bichrome setting. So there's the red, there's the black, and there's a stencil mode positioned in between. And we've reloaded this cartridge with Baco ribbon.
Right, and that's cloth. Now, and that's the difference there. So this one here, you automatically get the two colors. Right. Or you can type in the middle if you're assuming a single color to get that more yield. Third use. Now, what they did this, and this is one reason why they went with the, let me find the button here to lift up the release for the,
it's right there.
There, and you can just see where the guides are attached to the cartridge. Oh, okay. So that makes changing the bicycle style carbon film ribbon easier than on the Selectric 2 because the guides are attached to the mechanics of the machine. But instead of having the bichrome ribbon, this is much easier to change. You just pull that out and basically drop in another color.
Right.
And they made these in brown, blue, and green, and I have some brown ones, and black. Ironically, they didn't make it in red, and I think the reason they didn't make it in red from IBM, or at least my listings, was that the red didn't lift off very well on the correction.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, that's very interesting, and these are in some ways a lot alike.
Oh, yeah,
there's a
very,
lot
very
of
similar,
similarities,
yes.
But there's also some crucial differences, and so I'd kind of like to answer the question today: if a person out there in TV land was looking to buy a compact Selectric, which one of these would they go after, like based on their needs, right? So,
based on their needs, yeah.
So let's talk about that. So first of all, with the Personal Selectric, it's not as common. They only made them for like a year, maybe 1983 or 84.
1983 is when they marketed them, so they actually manufacturer might have been late 82.
Okay. But they made these for a long time, for 20 years almost.
Pretty much.
Maybe 18 years, 17 years. So there's a lot more of these potentially out there. So
Right.
these are going to be a lot more expensive on the used market, right?
Right, and on the new market, when these were sold in 1983, they listed for over $650.
Wow.
Which is
Yeah,
very expensive.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the Selectric 721 probably would have listed for less.
Yeah.
But it was still pretty expensive.
Right.
Well, on the used market right now, you're going to pay $600 for one of these.
Oh, yeah.
Most likely.
Right.
Maybe
and they
less.
still need work.
And they still need maintenance.
That's just like, as is.
And they give the extension. I had this one completely gone through mechanically, and I got it for really inexpensive, but it still cost me $250 for the servicing from a professional technician to get it up to snuff. And the same with one of these. They're going to need some servicing and work.
Sure.
But on the market right now, these are probably going to go for under $300.
Okay,
So
yeah.
half the price of one of these.
Right. So what you also get, though, with this model is you get carbon film imprint.
Correct. So you have that nice
sharp, professional quality imprint, right?
Exactly.
And lift-off correction, which
Yes.
is kind of what the Selectric is known for.
Right.
Even though, in the whole original model, the so-called one never had it. It was really the two that gave it that legacy.
Right, and then what I've seen probably you do, and I've done with my 721 model, is that when you do the correction on one of these, you got to use the tab.
Yes.
Or if you're using you can use an erasable type of paper.
Right.
So you can use an eraser.
Or a cartridge, or a cover-up cartridge. Yeah.
Or I suppose if you
really wanted to
white out or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. So yeah, your correction is much more cumbersome with this.
Now, this is using the so-called bicycle-style cartridge.
Correct.
That is not as common as the Selectric 2 carbon film cartridge.
Right, and so what is that? Like I said before, the difference is that the cartridge has the guiding fingers that lift up built into the cartridge. On the Selectric 2, they were built into the mechanism. But the Selectric 2 ribbons are much more common than these.
Okay, right.
And in fact, last I had heard that nobody's actually making the bicycle-style cartridge any longer.
Okay.
So all you can do is find new old stock.
New old stock. So that might be a factor in if you want a really rugged Selectric machine, a compact one for your own personal writing, maybe these aren't as sustainable because the cartridge.
It's going to be harder to find the
And now
ribbons.
we were talking off camera earlier about the possibility of reloading the carbon film from a Selectric 2 cartridge to the 3. Maybe that could be done. I'm not sure if it can be. But when you come over here to the 721 version with the cloth ribbon cartridge, we reloaded this. Now these were originally, was it 9/16?
It's a 9/16 inch ribbon.
But I reloaded it with a 1/2 inch cloth. And I have not had any problems. I have over a dozen type elements of different typefaces, and I haven't seen any imprint problems on red or black.
And I think that's going to kind of vary from machine to machine.
Right.
On my older one, which is from 1962, it really needed the 9/16 ribbon because it would cut up off the top. And so it's going to vary from machine to machine and year to year probably.
Now,
as far as
but you
manufacturing.
can get 9/16 inch ribbon.
Right.
which is the thing, right? Cloth ribbons, and you can take these cartridges apart relatively easily and reload them.
Yeah, and the way to do that is if you were to get it from Ribbons Unlimited.
Yes. Lanny will actually do that for you.
Yeah, and he'll send you the ribbon in just basically in a roll, and then you reload your own cartridge. And these aren't really that hard to reload.
No.
And he will also sell you a completely re-spooled cartridge.
Right.
But you're going to pay double the price because you're paying for his labor in re-spooling that.
Right, and that's nice. So, from the perspective of ribbon cartridges and ribbons going forward, it looks to me like the 721 is has a longer longevity.
Probably in reality. In our lifetime, meaning that we're going to be around for another 50 years at least.
Yeah, at least.
I doubt that the Selectric 2 ribbon cartridge will ever go out of production.
The Selector 2 won't, but this uses the 3.
This uses
as far
the 3
as comparing these two.
Right,
Yeah.
and so then you would have to, at some point, transition to a Selectric 2 cartridge, take it apart, and then reload it into here. And not having actually done that yet, but there's no reason why it really probably can't be done.
Now, they did not make the Personal Selectric with a Selectric 2 cartridge, right? They only made him with the 3.
Only with the bicycle style
Selectric.
Yeah. And
so that is a big factor between these two. The cost of the availability of the Personal Selectric is a little more rare, more expensive. And then the cartridge, that's an issue, right? That is an issue. But as far as the operation of the machine goes, other than that, they're pretty much identical now.
Pretty much. Yeah. And in our cases, they're both 12-pitch machines.
Right.
And they're only single pitch.
Right.
And their operation is almost identical. As far as if you're doing a personal typewriter, it's unlikely that you're going to use the varying depth of paper.
Yeah, you're not going to put in 8 carbons or whatever.
Yeah, you're not going to be using card paper. So here you don't have that.
Right.
Neither one of these have
what
the Selectric 2 had, which was the half backspace lever.
Now these both use the 88 character type element?
Yes, they do. Both use the 88 character.
Which is Selectric 1 and 2, let's say.
And with that, you get the largest selection of typefaces.
Yes.
You don't have as many characters as the 96 balls, but your typefaces there were more choices in the 88s.
Right.
And in different typefaces, even though they made well over 100 different type balls, a lot of those were for foreign language characters and special use, scientific, stuff like that.
Sure.
In typefaces, for either one of these machines with the 88, there was about 40 different typefaces available. And that's all the different typefaces that were available as opposed to character numbers on a ball or different characters on a ball.
Interesting. You have your desire for an electric typewriter, let's say, right? Because you like the efficiency and speed of electric typing. You don't have the ergonomic problems of manual typewriters.
Oh, yeah, it's much easier on the hands.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a choice. You can get a Selectric, maybe one of these kinds, or maybe the bigger 2 or 3, or you have an option of a electric type bar machine.
Oh, yeah.
And really a daisy wheel electronic typewriter.
Electronic.
Right? They all three kind of do that ease of typing thing. The big difference being, of course, that with a type bar machine, you're fixed with one typeface.
Right.
But with daisy wheels and with the Selectrics, you can change the type elements, right, to different style type elements. So I guess that kind of determines what kind of machine you want, right?
Right. And typing with a different type element, if you want to do that in a type bar electric machine, we have to buy another machine.
Yeah.
And people do that. They collect script, particularly, as opposed to your standard Pica or Courier or whatever. And in IBM Selectrics, the most common type element was Prestige Elite.
Yes.
That was the most common one. And that's very much a business look. But if you wanted to, so that's the advantage of a Selectric, is that if you wanted to have something that gives you a different feel when you're writing, because what typeface you're writing in does influence your creative process. Yeah. Well, then you could go with, in this case, we have a script, and we both happen to have letter Gothic in here, which is another very common one.
Mine's a GP brand element, and yours
this is an IBM one.
IBM, right?
And so you have those choices, and then, like I had mentioned, there are 40 or so different typefaces you can get for the Selectrics. Yeah. And some of them are quite flourishing, such as calligraphy. And others are more basic and would make your typewriting look like it's coming off of a computer, such as Dual Gothic in IBM, which looks a lot like the Calibri.
Or if you use Fracture, you can
font.
retype the Gutenberg Bible.
Right. And in that case, that particular one they called, in IBM was called Old World.
Oh, Old World, that's
Yes,
right.
and then
Old World.
if there was a GP ball, they called it Old English.
Old
and there's
English.
actually a slight difference between
Yes,
the two.
there are.
They weren't identical.
I think I have the Old English one.
Yeah, and depending on the pitch, one or the other looks better.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
right.
so that it can really influence it if that's what you want to go to. But the issue then you bring up against with the type bar machines as opposed to the Selectric, and to a lesser degree with the daisy wheel style electric, is maintenance issues.
Yeah. So, we've been talking about this off camera. It seems like, and I don't really have any proof, and this is just me talking off the top of my head, but it almost seems like when they designed the Selectric, they had in mind from the very beginning service contracts. Like they had a business model designed around the design of the machine. So if you let these sit unused, the lubricants, the greases harden, and you got to get it totally serviced. But if you really use it a lot, you wear it out. So in both cases, it needs service.
Right, and part of that business model too is that only IBM would service these.
Yeah.
They were proprietary. They didn't let independent typewriter repair shops work on IBM machines. They wouldn't give them any information.
Right.
And
yeah, so that was the. Now, of course, it's different nowadays, and there's a lot of what you might call gifted amateurs who are learning to service, Selectrics. I see a lot of them on the Facebook Antique Typewriter group, and so that's good. But that's an issue, right? Because going down the road, if you choose a Selectric of some kind, you might find yourself needing it to be serviced. And we're lucky in Albuquerque to have Steve Marshall.
right, we have a retired IBM service technician, and we're able to use him. But unfortunately, like all of us, he's not going to be around here forever.
That's right.
And then going through and learning via the IBM service manual how to service one of these, it's possible, but the adjustments, everything is much more precise on these as compared to a type bar machine.
And I've bought junker Smith Corona electrics from thrift stores where even the belts still work. They might have made a little thumping noise because the belt had a bend in it, but those seem to be just bulletproof and really reliable.
Well, then one of the fixes that you have for those is you go buy O-rings from the hardware stores that replace the belts, even though they weren't designed for that.
And then all the other degreasing and cleaning is pretty much consistent with a manual machine.
Yeah,
and then you have a kind of a reliable electric typewriter that's still easy to use. You're stuck with a fixed typeface.
Right,
That's
and you
the
have to
difference.
decide that, okay, that's what I want. And then you have to say, well, I'm just writing about something. It's not for publication when it comes out of the typewriter.
Yeah.
It's for my writing.
Right, exactly. And also getting to the difference between correctable or non-correctable built into the machine. If you're doing first draft writing, you probably don't care about the correction part of it as much.
Don't usually, but it does drive me nuts.
It does. It drives you nuts.
I'm just my CDO comes in. And
Oh,
so
your
just,
CDO?
Yeah.
What is CDO?
That's OCD alphabetized.
Oh, you have to alphabetize it. That's the next level.
It's the next level.
Well,
I can't help
so these are some things to think about if you want to get into a Selectric, like for serious writing or creative writing. Is it going to satisfy your needs? Keeping in mind it's pretty darn heavy, and it is maybe a little more maintenance intensive down the road than a type bar electric would be. That's something to think about. But it gives you the freedom of a lot of different type elements to choose from. It's nice having a Selectric.
Yes.
Even the one that isn't correctable, it's still nice because the.
Yeah, but you know what's much nicer about this one? I've got a bag.
Oh, it's portable.
It's portable.
Yeah. This one I have to. Where you
now,
can
even though they probably weigh the same.
Oh, they weigh 40 pounds probably,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, but no, this one's
and the 40 pounds on a little strap, that's not going to hurt. Right?
And that's an office machine. This is a personal machine.
It's personal. And if you have the fancy new pickup truck with the electrical outlet in the back of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you might have seen from our Cabinetlandia video.
Yeah.
yeah, you could type out in the desert
We
with,
type
with
out,
either
yeah.
one of these.
And so out in the wild.
In the wild.
And an extension cord, you become remote from that.
That's right.
So, you can be really out in the wild.
That sounds like one of those ads in Life magazine that you would have seen. Type out in the wild with your selector.
Yeah, so we could, drive up some Colorado rocky four-wheel drive path, out in the middle of nowhere and whip out our personal
Selectrics.
Right?
Yeah, I would call this a personal Selectric. It just needs the bag is all.
You can't have the bag.
No? Okay.
No.
We're going to fight over the bag. But in the meantime, we hope you guys got a little more information about both of these most compact style of Selectrics, what the features are, and which one you might want. And, of course, all of this is for the purpose of creative writing, of course. And I wish you the very best. Stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now. Now, about that bag.
Oh, man.